Hi, this is Regina with Morale Fiber, and for this tutorial we are doing the Tunisian Simple Stitch. It's the most basic Tunisian stitch that I know of. It's the one that I first started with. And here on screen I have our foundation chain and foundation row of Tunisian crochet. I'm going to zoom it in here. And as you can see, we have our loop from the return pass left over, and we have this end stitch here. That's our first stitch. It's already on the hook. So number one, that's our first stitch. It's already made. We're going to work into the next stitch in line. So I'm inserting my hook just in the front part of that loop. A lot of crochet stitches come out the back. Tunisian Simple Stitch goes in through the front and out through the front, just under this one loop of the stitch below. And you draw up a loop, and as you can see, you've got a loop drawn up. It's connected to that loop from the stitch down below, and that's our second loop on the hook, and that's one Tunisian Simple Stitch pulled up. I'm going to do it again on the next stitch. You can see our loops on the hook connect us to the stitches below. It's just worked on the front of the piece. We're not putting the hook through the back. And we're going to repeat the Tunisian Simple Stitch by drawing up a loop from each of the bars of the stitches, or the loops of the stitches across. Sometimes I call them bars. They look like bars on the finished crochet fabric, just like a dash line. They don't really look like loops. They look rather more like lines, so I think of them as bars. I call them loops. Here I'm just demonstrating. You can see me drawing up the loop from the looper bar below. And as I draw up that loop, I tuck it back behind my index finger, which I'm using to kind of control my tension and my stitches and move them back as I work. I'm going to stretch them out here as I near toward the end of this row. Just the one loop on the front. And here at the end, there's just that loop sticks out kind of at the end. Just slip it through that one. I'll show you the last stitch here. It does look a little bit looser. Typically your non-dominant side, so that's my left side, that seam on the edge is going to look just a little bit looser because of the way that Tunisian stitches kind of bias and tension toward the dominant hand. Okay, and here's my forward pass for my Tunisian Simple Stitch row. Again, every Tunisian row has a forward pass, and then we work the loops back off in a backward pass. And the return pass or backward pass looks pretty much the same as our foundation, which is we yarn over and draw through just one loop at the start of the return pass. Again, this is shown on my foundation Tunisian tutorials, the backward pass, and then every other stitch on the backward pass is worked off two at a time. So yarn over, draw through two, yarn over, draw through two, all the way across that row. So to begin, you yarn over and draw through just one. And then every other stitch is yarn over and drawing through two to work those loops off the hook. It attaches all those loops and stitches with this nice chain part of the row. So at the top there, you can see our stitches work back across. They're connecting all the loops. We finish with one loop left on the hook. And that's our first stitch of the next row. Here's our fabric. And as I mentioned in the Tunisian anatomy video, the top row of Tunisian crochet is always going to look a little bit loose until you work the next row in. Here we go, I'm starting my new row, and it's going to tighten that up. I'm drawing up a loop from the second stitch. Remember, don't work into that very first loop because you already have a loop drawn up from it from the return pass. And I'm just inserting through the front and coming out the front, catching just one of those loops. And on my final stitch, I catch that one bar on the edge, and I have another forward pass completed. I work it back off, working just one loop on the first, and then drawing through 2 loops on every other stitch. One of the reasons I really like Tunisian is the rhythm of it. Something about the forward pass and then the backward pass and like the small motions of doing just one thing over and over again is really soothing to me. So I do use Tunisian crochet a lot because I just love it. And I hope you are inspired to try it out. It does look a little intimidating, but with a little experimentation, be surprised how easy it is to pick up if you already know how to crochet. And Tunisian crochet also can produce a variety of really beautiful fabrics. I'm going to stretch this out here. Our Tunisian Simple Stitch barely even looks like crochet. It's like this beautiful woven texture that I can't get enough of. I've included it in a couple of my patterns, and I'll include some links to those patterns in the description below the video. Meanwhile, if you liked this resource, go ahead and like and subscribe and maybe save this playlist, as I'm going to add some more Tunisian tutorials soon.